Welcome to my channel, KC. That's me, Chug the Sledge Storyteller, here to talk about the wonderful world of storytelling and to open up discussion about how we can tell the best stories we can. Back to talking about superhero movies, everything good and bad from a storytelling standpoint. Now, I've heard a lot of people opine that Superman 2 is better than Superman 1, and it's all good. While I like Superman 1 more, it's easy to believe that Superman 2 would have easily been better, minus the behind-the-scenes drama. Now, there's no talking about Superman 2, at least in my chosen context, without talking about what stopped it from being what it was originally meant to be, more dramatically than the usual behind-the-scenes story. I'm going to leave a link to the official Warner Brothers videos in the description below to get a better idea, but here's a basic outline. The producers who got the ball rolling, father and son Alexander and Ilya Salkind, and their close friend Pierre Spengler, all on a project that was supposed to be a project that would make Superman 1 and 2 made in one big project, kind of like what they did with the Lord of the Rings movies. So those who had anything to say on their experiences with the Salkinds aren't very warm, with one exception with Tom Mankiewicz. One thing he did say, he was one of many screenwriters on the project who, in the midst of his disdain for the Salkinds, acknowledged that there never would have been a Superman movie series without the Salkinds seeing potential in the character as a property. They got the ball rolling. But the more you learn on the subject matter, the easier it is to feel that while the producers did believe that a Superman movie could be a box office success, they had limited vision on what could go into making the movie look believable. And that's where director Richard Donner proved to be the key factor. Making it work to go with the tagline, "You will believe a man can fly." Long story short, issues in handling the budget had tensions between the producers and director developed, and that led to Richard Donner getting squeezed out of the project after production on Superman 1 was completed and most of Superman 2 had been completed. Richard Lester took over for the remainder. So while the theatrical cut of Superman 2 has a considerable amount of footage filmed by Donner and there are parts filmed by Lester that I like, so much of the best of what Donner filmed was left out and the overall quality was compromised. Now, there have been multiple cuts made of the movie, all primarily focused between the original theatrical cut and the Donner cut. So I decided the best way to play out any insights is comparing how each film handled key factors in the story. The theatrical cut has been seen the most, therefore more people are familiar with the scene where Superman rescues Lois from plummeting to her death in an Eiffel Tower elevator car. Since the elevator car had a hydrogen bomb attached to it, Superman pushes it out of the tower and into space. The resulting explosion breaks Zod, Non, and Urza free from the Phantom Zone mirror, leading to the three of them bringing about murder and mayhem and forcing surrender from all the governments on Earth. Between the actors playing the villains, Terrence Stamp, while very much the Black Hat, carries both menace and charm. Sarah Douglas as Urza is very much the stand-by-your-man type, loyal to Zod and effectively pulling her own weight. Jack O'Halloran as Non, the dumb extra muscle in the theatrical cut, but just the intimidating extra muscle in the Donner cut. The Donner cut picks up directly from the tail end of Superman 1, where Superman threw a nuclear missile into space. That's what strikes the Phantom Zone mirror and frees the Evil Three. Both cuts have the villains wreaking havoc on astronauts doing field research on the moon. The pacing is different between the two, using some different transitional scenes involving NASA technicians, one played by John Ratzenberger, an apparent promotion from his job in Superman 1 as a missile technician, and Shane Rimmer, who apparently took up a post-retirement job as a water technician in Batman Begins. There, I just beefed up your 6 degrees of separation gameplay. Now, I've heard Richard Donner voice his disdain for the Eiffel Tower scene. I enjoy the terrorist performance and the interaction between Superman and Lois. Between the approaches of the big explosion, a bomb is a bomb. But I will say I like the villain's initial reactions to being freed better in the Donner cut. But overall, in the case of each, the handling of this part was entertaining, but neither one feels necessary better than the other. So, Lex Luthor has to break out of prison so he can end up in cahoots with Zod and his groupies. In the theatrical cut, Luthor benefits from the prison guard in charge of watching for would-be escapees going through the courtyard with the spotlight making its way all about. He's distracted by his TV. With that, Luthor hops onto the basket of a hot air balloon piloted by Miss Tessmacher, very much in the same vein as Harley Quinn in terms of relationship with the main villain. And with an alpha wave tracker, they locate Superman's Fortress of Solitude and get educated by its crystals with sage advice from deceased Kryptonian elders, and they learn the story about villains being banished from the Phantom Zone, in this case, from Superman's mother. The Donner cut, he ends up in the same balloon with Miss Tessmacher, much the same Crystal Council experience, except the story of the Phantom Zone villains is more illustrative and told by Superman's father. My judgment between these two here, and as much as I like Susanna York as Superman's mother, I'll always go with Marlon Brando as Jor-El, which gives away a lot of preferences in the upcoming factors. First, I have to mention that both cuts kind of rush the romance, perhaps hinging everybody's ready expectations on the historic Superman and Lois romance as a given. Furthermore, Donner was at a disadvantage because he hadn't filmed a lot of scenes to develop that relationship, but he gets that dynamic going much earlier by having the first scene involving the two show Lois picking up on Superman's similarities to Clark Kent by drawing a suit and glasses on Superman's picture in an issue of the Daily Planet. After she confronts Clark about it and jumps out the window anticipating his changing into Superman to rescue her, Clark manages to subtly use his powers to manipulate things enough to throw Lois off the trail, temporarily. All this before, at the mock honeymoon at Niagara Falls, an assignment from the Daily Planet, seeing Superman coming out of nowhere in Niagara Falls to rescue a reckless little boy who falls off the edge of the viewing area. After witnessing that, Lois takes on another chance by shooting a gun at Clark, who then roundaboutly admits that he's Superman before Lois reveals that she fired with a blank. Of course, Superman lore will tell you that Superman would have picked up on the fact that there was no bullet that hit him. I guess maybe he might have felt the blank's wad hit him. Still a stretch, but semantics. What hurts this scene is that it's made up of two screen tests for both Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, made all too obvious by the shifting back and forth of Reeve's hairstyle and glasses design. The theatrical cut gives an extensive depiction of Lois and Clark's mock honeymoon. We see Lois' suspicion about Clark arise when she gets a split-second glimpse of Clark sans the glasses. The same little boy rescue happens shortly after. Lois, in turn, runs much the same big come rescue me test by jumping into the river, expecting Superman to save her, and Clark discreetly manipulates things again with his powers to save her without making the wardrobe change, once again temporarily throwing her off track. But back in the honeymoon suite, Clark's tripping over a bearskin rug and his hands ending up in the fire, unscathed, leaves him busted, followed by a very well played out exchange between the two where they decide to go all out in courtship. There are aspects of both cuts in this matter that really bother me. For all the limited footage Donner had to work with in making the most of what he had filmed, it does hurt the development of that relationship, and you have to wonder what he would have figured out through multiple takes of the Lois shoots Clark moment. And the theatrical cut's depiction of all that really stretches your suspension of disbelief with how long we're supposed to believe it would take for a little boy to fall from the observation deck into the water, and how slow it shows Superman flying in for the rescue. Also, Clark's klutziness is normally an act to throw off suspicion. For it to happen this way feels forced, and I know how it was said shortly after that he purposefully did that, motivated by his heart, still pushing it. But the winning factor has to be the superb acting, mainly by Reeve as he reconciles with Lois once the gig is up. So the theatrical cut easily wins this one. Not much difference in the depiction of the battle at Metropolis. I do prefer Soup's egging on Zod with,
"General, would you care to step outside?"
in the theatrical cut, presumably on purpose, repeating the same challenge to Rocky at the diner where he did get trounced. In the Donner cut, he says,
"General, haven't you ever heard of freedom of the press?"
and just doesn't have that punch. Now, this video formatted this way, it's all because of this factor. Now, I can remember when I first saw Superman 2 and was a bit surprised to see Superman's mother serving as his oracle in the Fortress of Solitude. Decades later, I found out that these scenes were originally filmed with Marlon Brando still acting as Jor-El in the same fashion, but disputes and lawsuits by Brando led to replacing him with Susanna York. Now, again, I love Susanna York, both as his mother here as well as in my favorite version of A Christmas Carol playing Mrs. Cratchit. But Brando has been lauded by many movie enthusiasts as the best actor ever. Now, I don't think too hard on who's the best, but I don't deny the man's incredible acting chops as the reason to keep him here. And it is those scenes with Jor-El in the Donner cut that cause you to feel like the movie never realized its ultimate potential. And for being relatively new to Hollywood, Christopher Reeve never shrank when interacting directly with the man Brando. Reeve proved convincingly forceful as Clark, mandating the freedom of being with the woman he loved, and then coming back powerless, and he has to admit the consequences that came with the decision to give up his powers, only to return to do what was necessary to reclaim them in a powerful scene played out between the two. This was another missing aspect of the theatrical cut that hurt the movie, leaving you confused as to exactly what Soups did to restore his powers after his mother spoke in definitive terms that they would be gone forever. The Donner cut wins this no contest. Amid the climax and the ultimate resolution, both cuts commit faux pas. The theatrical cut gives Superman bizarre extra powers, and toward the very end, Clark gives Lois Lane a kiss that gives her amnesia from knowing his secret identity. The plot's reason is because of Lois' anxiety over wanting to be with Clark, and knowing from recent experience that it can't work. The movie's reason is to reestablish the status quo, obviously. The Donner cut has the worst alternative, at least in my opinion, where Superman does the redo of the same around-the-world time reversal done in Superman 1. Unlike many, I was okay with the first one since the reversal was minimal, but this time around the reversal erased everything, going back to the Kryptonian villains getting freed from the Phantom Zone in the first place, meaning suddenly everything you saw happening from that point should be invested as never happening. Except somehow Clark's payback on diner bully Rocky is still played out like Rocky still recognized him. And Clark still needs to emphasize that he's been working out, as though there was something different about him as seen previously by the diner owner. Since I feel the need to watch the Jor-El scenes in the Donner cut, but am bothered most by the time reversal, My usual approach to watching Superman 2 is to run the Donner cut on DVD up to just after the final Supes and Zod showdown where Superman drops off Lois at home. Then I switched to the VCR to finish with Lesser of Two Evils, the Amnesiac Kiss, and Superman's returning the White House dome, promising the president that he'll never let him down again. You know, that's an awkward setup, but it's the best kind of Superman 2 I think I can put together with what I've been given. And all the more where I regret that it couldn't be put together in some better fashion than what we ended up with either way. But you know, in their own way, I enjoy either one of them. That's just my current way, and that there probably will be a time where I watch the theatrical cut by itself. But that's my take on the two Superman 2 cuts, the key ones. Thank you for watching. Agree, disagree, something I left out, please let me know in the comment section. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. As always, the link to order Sledge number 1 and 2 is in the description below, where you can order it on Kindle. Either way, you have the options of paper copy or digital copy. And I'm very excited where we're getting with Sledge number 3. Tiago, you know, he's had some things slow him down, but he is working on those last few pages. And I have got the things still going with the lettering, with what I do have. And so I'm excited to see things further develop. As always, let's all look for civility amid all the bad news out there, social, political strife. Let's look upon everyone as a potential friend. But thanks for watching. Everyone be safe, and God bless.